Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our group session today. We've got 4 mentors, including ourselves, and our title for today's session is Land a Job Across the Globe. And this is part 2. Not sure if any of you have attended the part 1. There was really engaging discussion, great question. And we thought as a group, oh, there's so many unanswered questions. Maybe we should have part 2. And that's exactly why we're doing this. So I'm gonna let all the other mentors introduce themselves so that I can keep letting people in. So today's session, we're just gonna start with a quick introduction from each mentor, and then I'm gonna dive into the topics right away. Later on, we'll be using Figma board, Jamboard, to kind of vote for the questions. I'll share the link later, so don't worry about it. But let's get started with the introduction. So the first one up, Ming-E, why don't you give a quick intro?
Thanks, Eva. Hi, everyone. My name is Ming-E. I'm from the UK originally, but my parents are from the UK, so I'm Chinese. From Hong Kong, sorry, so I'm Chinese. Most of my life I lived in the UK. I moved to London for 2 years in my 20s when I was first finding job and finding work. Then I also moved and lived in Germany for 1.5 years. To work at an e-commerce company there. After 1.5 years there, I am now located in Sydney, and I'm working in fintech as a senior product designer in Sydney.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for the intro. And next up, Josie.
Yeah, thanks, Eva. Hi, everyone. My name is Josie. I'm currently located in Hong Kong. I'm originally from the US, and similar to Ming-E, my parents are Chinese and Vietnamese. So I grew up in the States and I lived everywhere, Seattle, San Francisco, New York. And then I lived in Shanghai for a few years and actually started my career in digital advertising. So I moved to China, lived in Shanghai, and then I moved out to Hong Kong. And that's when I fully transitioned to product design and UI and UX.
Wow, amazing. I'm super jealous. My dream is to go to different countries and work a bit. Sounds like you have lots of experiences. Thank you. And last but not least, Ryan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan. I'm currently based in Vancouver, Canada. I moved to Canada about 8-9 years ago from China. So I studied interaction design in Vancouver and then got into product design after graduation. Now I'm working for a US company, fully remote. So yeah, that's a little bit my background.
Ryan, a question for you. Are you a YouTuber?
No, I wish, but no.
I'm guessing Chelsea thought your background is pretty cool. Or maybe your camera's got that nice depth. Thank you for the introduction. And I guess I will introduce myself as well. I'm going to be the host for today. My name is Eva. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of ImmiSearch. Before I start my own company, I was also working as a UX designer for a few years at a startup and also bigger corporate like SAP. But later on, I find my passion in product management. So I moved into product, work my way up as a product owner and also to a product manager. But my primary work experience are still just in Canada. But I was born in Hong Kong and moved to Canada when I was 16. And then earlier this year, I've co-founded this startup called ImmiSearch, where our mission is really to help immigrants to move to Canada safely and simply. And yeah, if you have time, check out our website, immisearch.ca. We're actually planning to launch a new product next month, very exciting, where we want to help immigrants navigate the entire immigration process within one single platform. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to share a link in the chat. Today, we're going to be using Figma Jamboard to kind of facilitate our conversation. So I'll give people a couple minutes to hop on the link. And let me know if you can access that. And I'll also share my screen in case if you're on your phone, it's just hard to play around with the board. Okay. Let's see, I'm seeing a few cursor there. Let me know if you're able to access the board. Okay, so I've left everyone's profile at the top. So later on, maybe we'll have a bit of time for everyone to share their profile as well. I love this animation. Yes. So you can just kind of go to the topic voting column. I think it's red, maybe it's salmon, the first very column. So what we're going to do is kind of vote on which topic we want to spend more time on. So we want to make sure our conversations are catering to what you want to know today. So let me see. At the bottom, there's a toolbar where there's like a stamp thing. So you just want to go ahead and click on any of these sticker. You can use a 1+ to vote on stickies that you really want us to spend a bit more time on. You can do that now. So pretty easy to use. Click on the stamp, pick a sticker, and then you can put on the topic on the first column so that we know which one you want us to spend a bit more time on. For those who just joined, I'm going to share a Figma Jamboard link. We will be using this link to vote on questions and topics we want to discuss as a group. So if you just want to hop on the link and go to the board, I'll also be sharing my screen so that you can see exactly what's being asked and what are getting voted. Okay. Just gonna zoom out. So you see there are some questions already. Those questions are left from the last group. There were way too many questions. We just didn't get to address them. That's why we've left it there. So if those questions also resonate with you, what you want to learn, feel free to add more stamps on it. So I'm just gonna go through the topic voting. Looks like most people want to know about how to land a job in a foreign country. The couple votes or a few votes on how to network in the target country when you're not there yet. So maybe what we could do is go through the question in the blue column, which is the top voted topic. And then we're gonna be switching to the gray column as the second topic we wanna dive into. So if everybody just want to move to the blue column, you can create new stickies. I know this column is already getting a little long, but you can still create new sticky by clicking on this sticky at the bottom and then make new ones. So you can type on your questions and then you can vote on new questions if you want. So we'll also spend maybe just 1 minute on that. And I'll keep sharing the link. So for those who just joined, we're using Figma link board to facilitate our conversation today. Hop on the board, vote for the topic that you want us to talk about, or even create new questions if you have any. Let's see. And then, okay, at a glance, I guess this is the top voted. So I'm just gonna go ahead. So first question around how to land a job in a different country. What didn't work for you? Any of our mentors wanna address this question? Don't be shy, or you could also, maybe it's a bit hard to say what didn't work for you, or what we could do is share about your own journey on how, where you moved to, how you find a job, just kick off the conversation a little bit. So maybe the memory will start coming back.
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, so I guess it's just learning along the way. Not everything goes as planned and as how you'd like it in your mind, but I think for me, what didn't work one time was not really being fully prepared for a potential recruiter. And it was said that I would have an informal chat with a recruiter, and I thought, okay, cool, that's easy. It's just, chit chat about myself, and I'm pretty sure I can talk about myself. However, it can be very difficult when you're trying to sell yourself, kind of, and just smoothly talk about yourself and know what you've achieved and know your strengths and your weaknesses as well. There's plenty of articles that have a long list of typical interview questions. So even though you don't know the answer, it's kind of good to get your mind set into those kind of talking topics, just so it's a little bit fresher on top of your mind, and you're a little bit more prepared than if anyone does say it's an informal chat, if it's to do with networking or talking to someone where you may not maybe want the job that much, but it's always good to have a good impression of yourself, because and then later down the line they may contact you again, or they may know someone else, and just creating a good network around yourself and starting from a good light as being prepared.
Definitely, that's a very good point. Me actually also have a story to share as well, where my friend referred me to a product owner job, and I also thought it was a chit chat. I went to the office, and then the hiring manager just went straight into basically interviewing questions. I wasn't really prepared. I think I bombed the interview a little bit. So that was a really good tip. Always be prepared. Even though it might end up to be a casual talk, but at least you know if the opportunity appears, you're ready. That's a very good tip. How about Ryan and Josie? Any other comments on this question?
So I think also keep in mind that I feel like things happen for a reason, or there's a lot of things that are out of our control. So trying to constantly control something didn't work for me, mostly like mentally. And also when you're constantly pinging a recruiter, like, hey, what about my application? What about this? What about that? Kind of annoys them, I'm sure. And also I think it's just, you try to control too many things in the flow. And I just think mentally and emotionally, it's not very smart. And I think it's for your well-being, it's just not very good. And when you try to push things too much, I think it comes off. I don't know if it's just a weird impression, or if it's more just that I think things happen naturally, or things happen in a flow. So I think when you try to push things or control things too much, things tend to go completely the other way. So it's mostly about keeping an open mind and receiving things that are meant to be there for you. So rather than trying to control and push everything in one direction, not only is it just mentally draining, it's also you'll be disappointed at the end, because things may not have happened your way. But maybe things didn't happen for a reason, because maybe it wasn't a good fit. And then there are other opportunities that are perfect for you. So trying to squeeze things that are not right for you because you desperately want a job in whichever city is not necessarily the best way to go. And then learning to let go and learning to let things just come as they go, rather than trying to control everything. I think that's one thing that I really learned in this whole process.
Yeah, I love that actually. Job searching is more than just a job. It's also about what you want, life lessons. So that's really good. How about Ryan? Anything to add on before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, sure. Well, my experience are kind of not that crazy, I would say, because I'm just working remotely. So I didn't need to go through all the relocation and all that stuff. But for me, just in job searching in general, apply online, just for me never really worked that well. For my current job, I got some help from ATP list, from a mentor on ATP list, and she referred me to this position. That's how I got in contact with the company, with my hiring manager. I'm sure that helped me a lot in terms of get closer to the decision-making process. I got to meet hiring manager early on rather than go through the recruiting process. So yeah, I would say just try to expand your network, try to reach out to people and see if any opportunity there.
Yeah, fantastic point. Later on, networking will be I guess a topic on its own. We'll dive into networking a little bit later. Thanks, Ryan. So I'm going to move on to the next question, because I think this is a very important one to talk about, where we actually didn't have time to address last time. how can one navigate racial bias while searching for jobs in a different country? Any mentor want to take this on? Ooh, I know it's a hard one.
I can start. Yeah, so just a bit of a disclaimer. I think because I'm living in an Asian country, maybe my experience with racial bias is a bit different than maybe those working in different countries or like different cultures to theirs. But I think, well, at least from my perspective, like one thing that you can try to find out within the company is how much do they actually value diversity and inclusion by either looking on their website or like following their articles, things that they post, or even finding, sometimes I LinkedIn stalk companies and just even like search their people and see like if there is, you know, a little bit of diversification there. I think one thing that I try to do is showcase more of my skill set, my experience, my projects in my portfolio, and really try to ask those questions in the interview as well. If they include like diversity, equality, and inclusion in their company culture. I haven't personally experienced this necessarily while searching for a job in a different country. And I know the climate in the US and elsewhere is very different now. So I can't really say exactly that I've experienced it, not really so much in Hong Kong, but it's a different kind of perspective in Hong Kong actually, because often at least in Asia, I found that expats or people that are not from the local culture actually are treated differently, and whether it's good or bad, sometimes they have a higher pay package or a certain relocation package. And then I don't know if it's because they come from the West or like their thinking is just different. So a lot of times the talent is actually more valued. So that's kind of like the opposite racial bias. It's like the local market is, I would say, treated differently or looked at differently than like foreign culture or foreign talent. So that's kind of like a different perspective on maybe what this question is.
Yeah, but I think it's still really good to be aware, you know, about these differences, because I know not so much about job searching, but even in Canada, I've been in a few companies where there is racial and also gender biases in terms of how much people are getting paid for the same position with the same experience. Sometimes it's unconscious bias, or maybe male or more, you know, the stereotype of male, they are more confident to get a job maybe they're not qualified for, versus female feel like they need to tick all the boxes before they apply. So I think doing research before you apply would be good. As you know, companies who are more aware of these biases, maybe they will alter their job description a little bit so that to make it more welcoming to female to apply, or even for a specific race to apply. But I definitely recognize there's definitely like racial biases in job searching.
Yeah, just one more thing to add is like there's a lot of tools now or like projects that people have started where they're public and anonymous Excel sheets that explain like what your salary is or what like the average salary is. And it's basically like a salary transparency sheet. So I've seen those for like women in tech, and that's global. I've seen them for designers in Hong Kong because it's a very low paid market. So at least you can benchmark yourself where other people are getting like extremely well paid, not only on like your local market, but also on a global scale. And then also as a female in tech, how you compare to maybe your male counterpart. So I think having those conversations with people, your colleagues, or even your friends in different companies, you can see like where you should be closer to. And yeah, especially in Asia, like it's very taboo to talk about these things. So if you can try to open up those conversations with your colleagues, or at least ask the recruiter when you're interviewing, like what's the benchmark for the salary, you can at least know like where you are at and if that role is going to be fit for you.
Yeah, definitely. How about Ryan and Ming-E? Any other comment on this question?
Yeah, I really love the salary spreadsheet. I've never actually come across that before, but that's really cool. It's good to know. I think I've learned something from that. Yeah, this question is really huge, and obviously it really depends on individuals' experience as well of what they feel racial bias is. I think for me, if you feel it, it's a racial bias. If you feel it, there's no like right and wrong answer whether it is or not. It's all down to if you feel you're okay with something that's happening, or just feeling somewhat excluded in some way or other. I think in terms of finding work, in my experience, you really just don't know if maybe your application got dismissed because where you're from, your background, your name. Like, I think from my experience, like looking for work, especially in the UK, when someone would probably see my name, this is a guess, I've never had anyone say any, like confirm this with me, but I'm pretty sure that recruiters have seen my name and thought, okay, she probably doesn't speak English, you know, and it's kind of those stereotypes. And the I guess Chinese people in UK, there is a mix of UK born and international students that come over as well, from Asia. And yeah, it's kind of segmented in that kind of way as well, which I probably have been put in a box some way or another. But I think for me, when I was looking for a job in the UK, I was a lot younger. I don't think I was really in tune with that kind of thing happening. It kind of crossed my mind. But as well, if there's a company that you do feel dismissed, or you feel that it's not quite right in terms of how they maybe treat you, even if you're in a job, then it's something that you can identify within your own values of what you want in a job place, in work, the people that surround you, or even as well, like having the job of educating other people when you have the energy, if you think it's the right time, right person, etc. Obviously, we can't be doing that for everyone every day and every second and every minute. It's very exhausting. But I think in terms of finding work, you, I guess, move forward if it's not a right feeling, and being able to research as well is good. I have been in really big companies where on the outside it is very, you know, advocating diversity, but and then within it is actually a little bit different, because it just depends on the people, and it depends where. Like when I was working in Germany and Berlin, it was really diverse, the company I was working for, and there was international people within the workplace. And there was just like one scenario where it was actually outside of work, like in the building, and there was some construction people working on site. And then that was where I had some kind of, it wasn't really racial bias in terms of looking for a job, but that was kind of a racial thing that happened. Like someone said something to me, and I was like, okay, that happened in work, but outside of work. And I didn't report it, and I probably should have done. I didn't report it because I didn't think it was the company's responsibility. But and then when I was talking to one of my friends, who she's Sri Lankan, she's from Sydney. I guess we had a similar upbringing where we're from somewhere else, person of color, growing up in a Western white country. And she was like, yeah, you should have told them, because who they bring in to work on site is also their responsibility. So that was something that I was in a funny position with. And I still think it wasn't anything that, I don't know, I didn't think could happen, but I think it's good to know for the company that maybe an employee felt like that and they shouldn't have done. So it's a really, really big topic, and I'm sure there's so many different stories that different people have around this, and we could probably have a whole session about it as well, with like questions coming out of it. But yeah, there's lots of different experiences. It just depends on how you feel about things.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm sure it's a vulnerable moment. Yeah, I agree. That probably can be its own group session. But just to want to add in, you know, how much I agree Ming-E was saying, like if you feel it, it's probably there. because there's also one time I felt like, oh, I didn't really feel like working with a colleague. It felt like he was talking down to me. And I always told myself, oh, maybe I'm just making a big fuss. I shouldn't feel like that. But later, after some reflections, like, no, the feelings, if you feel that, probably something or someone made you feel that, and your feelings are valid. So next time, if you feel like that, maybe don't just run away. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be that person. Someone needs to speak up, or maybe the person who's treating you like that, he's not aware of, not on purpose, but still, if no one's talking about it, then nothing would change. But obviously, that takes a lot of courage. So yeah, Ming-E, thanks for sharing your experiences. Ryan, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, I just want to echo on the point of you will never know for sure that whether those bias actually happened. But I guess the best thing you could do is just try to like improve your interview skill. Like for me, it was interview skill, because my English was not good. So when I was searching for job in Canada, I had this thought of maybe I didn't get a job because I'm Chinese and my English is not that good. And for me, like the best I could do is just improve on, find the right way to tell my story, find the right way to articulate my design decision. Yeah, just try to improve on things I can control and don't think about those things that's kind of like outside of your control.
Yeah, that's a good point to, recognize your strength, or, what other points that you can be better on and improve on that. And also, if we're designer, if you're from a specific country, you feel like you're the minority, the truth is that the products the company are designing for, they probably are used by people who may share a similar background as you as well. So it's actually quite important for companies to have diverse team. But obviously, that's kind of the ideal situation that may not happen. Great. I'm really happy we're able to talk a little bit about that, but we gotta move on because of time. So I'm gonna move on to the next question that also get a lot of votes. How do you navigate the visa sponsorship conversation with an employer? Any of the mentor had to talk about visa when they got a job, or even before they got an offer?
Yeah, usually when they look at your profile, they know from your experience, like where you're coming from. But yeah, usually I just mention it in the very first conversation with the first person that I talk to, so recruiter or whoever, or even in the email thread when I'm talking to them, that I am a US passport holder, currently living in X country, and will need visa sponsorship if I'm going to somewhere that's not in the US. It depends on the country, but for example, Hong Kong and China, the first job you get there, they sponsor the visa, and then transferring the visa to a new company sponsorship is actually quite easy. So once you're in the country, it's relatively easy, but I think we live in a global world, and they know that they are talking to people who are outside of the country or outside of the market because they need the talent that's not in the local market. So more often than not, the employer probably expects to have some sort of visa sponsorship like conversation. So I think it's not as taboo or scary as one may think, but it's just a matter of like what type of sponsorship and how transparent they are in the beginning. Because now I started seeing recruiters posting about how they don't offer sponsorship, or that they'll just be very clear that they do provide it or don't provide it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And do you find that, I think being upfront is probably good, save time for both of you.
Exactly.
But do you find that you get more rejection because you needed that visa sponsorship?
I wouldn't call it rejection, but it's more filtering out the jobs that are not right for you, because I just am upfront. There's like certain priorities that I'm very upfront about. So one is visa sponsorship if I'm going outside the US, and then like number 2 and 3. So if they don't even meet those basic 1, 2, 3, like that's fine. It doesn't go beyond like the LinkedIn conversation. So I wouldn't call it a rejection. It's more just a filtering, and you're kind of, saving everyone time.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, and what would you say to maybe more junior designer who may not have so much leverage, to select from maybe a wide options or companies like yourself? Is there anything you would recommend them do?
I don't think it has anything to do with experience. It's really about, again, like the roles that are right for you. So I think sometimes they do hire juniors, just depends on the situation and the company. So I don't think it's about confidence or anything like that. I think it's really about, like, is this the right role for me? If they don't offer me sponsorship, then there's no point in continuing this conversation because I can't make it happen without a visa sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely. That's also a good point. Regardless of your experience, you should always choose what's best for you. So it's a very good point. And Chelsea, did you have other additional comment? Are you also based in Australia, or are you somewhere else? Okay, while she's typing, maybe we'll step away. Ryan, Ming-E, any other comments on this question?
Yeah, I can speak to this because I have a working visa for Australia. So I think there's a few different scenarios where when I was looking for a job, I was speaking to recruiters and I was probably a little bit more open in the sense of, okay, the companies that you present to me need to be able to sponsor. Sometimes with recruiters, depending on what country, because I think there's not recruitment agencies and things everywhere, but I think within product design, UX, UI and things, it's getting more popular. But sometimes a recruiter, or I've heard stories where, they kind of need people to go through and put candidates forward and they'll say, okay, we will sponsor if it's for the right person, which I think is true, but it's not always the case. But I think it's still good to interview and try and go as far as you can, not waste time, but I guess interview to kind of get your personal skills out there and people know about it. Like the recruiter as well is probably someone you need to somewhat convince that you're a good candidate for them to represent as well. So without the sponsorship things, it's kind of important anyway. But and then if they know that you're really awesome and they're going to try and find you a company that will sponsor, it's actually kind of a two-way benefit where they work a little bit harder and they help you find a job as well, and it's a place for sponsorship as well. I think also, yeah, going to Chelsea's comment about designers in Australia at the moment, this year, I think it was only a few months ago, the job title multimedia specialist, which is a really kind of on-demand visa right now. It's a 4-year visa, and that got bumped into the priority list. So along with software engineers and multimedia specialists. So I know UX researchers, product managers, product designers who are put underneath this multimedia specialist. I'm not saying it's all guaranteed, but an agency that helped me define what I needed for my application. I did that. So, and I've heard that from just other people in the industry as well. So that's really good. There's a lot of, I guess, opportunity for multimedia specialists in Australia, and my visa, it got turned around in like a few days. So yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing, Chelsea. On your note, looks like she has a different technique that may work for her as well. That she said she didn't bring up early, make people like her, and they will put in a bit more effort to sponsor her. So it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're also willing to take the risk, that in the end they may not be able to commit to sponsoring you, then you might be basically wasting a lot of time doing interviews. Or you someone who's willing to invest a lot of time, hopefully to get them basically hooked, that may also work for you. Fantastic. I'm going to move on to a related question. Are there any techniques in convincing an employer to hire you as an international contractor if you're unable to relocate? Maybe Ryan would be someone good to talk about this.
Yeah, I can talk about this. So from my experience, my company are really open to hire a contractor, so it wasn't really a problem at all. So I was working with them as a contract for like few months at the beginning because I couldn't get my visa. And on the visa side, I'm Canadian, so for US company, I can just apply for TN visa, which doesn't really require sponsorship from the company. You sort of just make sure, like because product designer is not on the visa job list, so you sort of just have to convincing like the immigration officer that your job description fits one of their job list title. And I found a lawyer help me to do that, but like your company can also help you to do that as well. Basically, you just need a letter to describe what's your job description, what's your job responsibility, and yeah, on this question, I don't really know if there's any techniques. Maybe that's sort of related to Chelsea's comment. Like you probably want to make the company like you first, then you can sort of convince them. You can just hire me as a contractor, and it should be a simpler process for company to hire someone as a contractor compared to like deal with visa relocation, but I'm not sure about that. So yeah, I guess the technique is just like do well during your interview, have a nice conversation with the company, with the hiring manager, make them like you, and then you can talk about a contractor.
Yeah, I guess sometimes we focusing on convincing or interviewing, but a lot of times it's just as raw as demand and supply. If your skill set is what they need, then they will try really hard to get you. So it could just be something that you need to maybe improve on your skill set or learn something that no one else know how to do. That also may increase your chances of getting hired. Awesome. Any other comments from other mentors on this question? Not, as we can move on. Okay. So we have a lot of votes on networking. So I just we only have about 18 minutes left. I do want to talk about networking. So feel free to continue adding more questions and vote on topics you want to chat about. But maybe we can discuss networking more generally. Yeah. So if you're not in a country there, I think we have a question over here actually. How do you network in a country that you're not there yet?
That's a good question. I can talk to that. I've probably been in situations where I've been in the country and I don't know anyone and don't know anyone in the industry. But then also I think there's a lot more events now that are obviously virtual, like this one, and a lot more online networking happening as well. So I guess it's starting conversations, whether it be on LinkedIn or ADP list as well with mentors. And when I feel like it just opens up so many more people, and even with meetups, I'm pretty sure they do a lot of things online now, like General Assembly. There's like different academies that host so many virtual things now where you can kind of learn from people and then kind of grab new names from different places. Even it's so easy to find people in industry now, like if they have a LinkedIn, start a conversation. And it's not, I feel it doesn't come across as a weird thing. It's kind of an usual thing, typical thing that happens now. But yeah, I guess online is the place if you're not in the country yet.
I guess also, well, in the unfortunate event of pandemic, but it also helped with like all the online events, everything's moving online. I would say it's much easier to connect online than the previous years. Josie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, everything's online, but also like it would be good to use your network. I'm sure like all of the jobs that I found have just been through friends of friends of friends. So if you have someone that you know who has worked in like the country that you want to move to, or is from there, or has friends there, or even like just one random person, you can just shamelessly ask them like, hey, can you connect me to this person? Even if they're not in the same field, they may know some recruiters. Like it really is about network. And even if that person is not in your professional network or in a totally different field, that person has a little bit more local market insight that you may not have. So I think that definitely helps to kind of get your foot in the door. And honestly, like, I know I say this a lot, but if there's a company that you like, you can LinkedIn stalk those people, the recruiter, maybe a designer, or somebody that you've seen, their article or their design on Behance, something like that. There's no shame in just messaging someone and saying, hey, like, I'm curious about moving to the city. Do you have any resources or recruiters, or can I buy you a virtual coffee since you can't buy physical coffee? But it's really just about being okay to just reaching out to people, cold calling them, cold messaging them, and then working your network to see if there's anyone that you may know who might know someone there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Ryan also made a good comment in the chat that it also costs a lot of money for companies to do hiring. And that's why usually in a company there's like referral bonus, like they want their team members to refer other people. Because at the end of the day, something I didn't know when I was a bit, I guess, junior was I always thought companies just want to hire the best, and I have imposter syndrome that thinking, oh, I'm not the best, they don't want me. But most of the time, it's not really like that. Obviously, they're looking for skill set that the team needs, but then essentially they're looking for someone they can collaborate with, someone that they could work with. You're not looking for the smartest person, but extremely difficult to work with. So always referrals work much better than, submitting cold resume. You just get filtered. So that's a very, very good point. And I actually have a mentee here. I don't know, Victoria, are you still here? Victoria Kim. I've asked her to network. Actually, maybe it's a good time to bring up a lot of the designer, including myself, are introverts. Need tips to network without feeling extremely exhausted?
I can also talk about this a little bit. Well, really, COVID really make it a lot easier for me to network with people. I had huge trouble trying to talk with people in real life meetup. And since COVID, everyone is willing to talk to you over Zoom, and there are a lot of services help you connect you with someone else, like Lunch Club and ADP List. So just trying to take advantage of those kind of services. Like you don't like I didn't really do a lot of cold reach on LinkedIn because somehow it just didn't really work for me that well. So it's for me often it's just organically reaching out to people on like ATP list or Slack. Like I'm pretty active on different Slack communities. I will just share the stuff I learn about design and answering people's questions, or also ask questions. Then like people will kind of know you, like they know you are pretty active in the community, and they will sort of remember you as well when something came up. So for me, that's kind of like my networking technique is just typing in the chat That's pretty easy for me. Like I don't really need to think about what I should say, how I should say it. I have all the time to think about what I should type. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I guess a great tip. You got to figure out what works for you. So for Ryan, he's I guess a typer versus maybe some of you are more someone who want one-on-one time or with a Zoom meeting, or someone who wanted the more in-person meetings. For me, networking works when we actually collaborate together. I'm also not someone who just like talking about random stuff. I find it really helpful when I join a community, actually maybe be a volunteer like ADP Liz. I'm also in a local community of the Vancouver Design Check-in and also Product VC, where you actually get to collaborate or talk about topics that you're really interested in, obviously UX design. That's when you can actually build a bit more meaningful connections. And from there, they may know someone who work at a company that you're looking for a job for. So that's kind of just how you start manifesting. So great point. And then Victoria refused to share her website. Okay, she's still updating, but definitely check it out. Oh, actually she posted. It's great. Victoria website is great, but she always felt like it's not good enough. How about other mentors, other comment on the networking topic? No? Okay, we've got 10 minutes. Maybe we can, let's see, answer one more question. Which one should we do? So we did this guy. Looks like there's a bunch of votes here as well. Which one? I can't count. I'm gonna take the one on the left. Have you found any bias towards people transitioning into UX design with a bootcamp certificate? That's a good question, because those bootcamps getting more and more popular.
I can start. I'm not sure if you can call it bias, but the kind of like downside of learning from bootcamp is they teach you design process in a very linear way, and often you see grads from bootcamp, like their portfolio are all follow same almost like template, and they do user research, they do this, and they don't really talk about why they do those things and what they learn from each design exercise or design step, and how they apply those learnings. So yeah, so I wasn't it's really a bias, but like just be careful that you always want to showcase your thought process, whether that's during interview or on your portfolio, showcase why you do things. That's what gonna make you different from other designer, because everyone knows how to do color sorting or how to do like MC map.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'll just left a comment. I mean, I came from, I guess I did a 4-year degree in interactive art and technology. That's like the closest thing you can find is UX design in Vancouver. I guess it's a longer program. Sure, we have more time to practice building projects, but I don't really think that's like a differentiator at all for us to stand out from maybe people who took a bootcamp certificate. I think most of the hiring manager will look at basically your projects. Are they the same? And if you came from a school which just did school projects, your portfolio are likely going to look pretty similar than your peers. So I often talk to my mentees and also my peer, you gotta get out, put yourself out there and get other type of work experience. If you can't get a real life experience, maybe find other volunteer projects so that you have more diverse portfolio. And also for you, you have more diverse work experience as well, even though maybe that's for nonprofit or anything else. So that's something definitely to look for. How about Ming-E and Josie?
Yeah,
what's your take?
I think as well, I agree with Ryan that I don't maybe see it as a bias. It's probably the fact that it's a very saturated market now where anyone can do these UX bootcamp and I've heard that a lot of people go through as well without, they complete it, and depending on where the bootcamp is coming from, sometimes it's marketed as a way that, okay, once you've done your certificate, you can get a UX job. And sometimes it's not as straightforward and easy as that. And I guess echoing your point, Eva, is keep going, because your portfolio will probably be very similar to other people. And yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a misconception that you will definitely get a job. It's kind of with any degree or with any study, like, okay, you study this and you should get a job in it. Not necessarily. You still got to work quite hard to get the job, to build your portfolio, have a different and diverse portfolio as well, and try and get something that's related to real life, even though if it's not from a particular company, you can still use your ideas and your methods that you learned from the bootcamp. And there's actually a lot of exercises as well, like product design exercises, UX research exercises online as well. If you can't think of something yourself, or even tweak something and bring it local, or bring it to a brand or a company that is located in the place where you want to go. So maybe it can be relatable as well. But yeah, I guess the boot camps are really awesome, especially if you don't have a background in design, or you're really not sure about the career path. I think it's a really good intro, but as well, I think it's probably only an intro. Maybe there's some people who have already got jobs through it, which is awesome. But in case if there are people thinking, oh, okay, I'm applying for jobs and I'm, not getting much luck, which I think I've had a few mentees who've had that struggle, and it's to keep going, build, and I guess improve your own skills, and then you would be more confident, and then it will just reflect as well, like the employer will see your different diversity and the whys, like Ryan said, like the whys and the methodologies of why you did something, as opposed to the course told me this. Yeah, I can understand it's super hard.
That's also a very important point. Why? I've also seen some creative designer doing like daily challenge, like a case study focused on a specific piece. Maybe one challenge is just on UI redesign. Maybe the next one is focusing on research. So that's also many ways to showcase your skill set rather than doing, a full-blown project. Just Josie, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, so actually I am also a mentor for one of those boot camps. This is not a plug. I mentor at Design Lab. So there's many of them. I quite like this one because it's quite extensive, and they take you through the course. So 6 months or 3 months, whatever path you take, you do the course, they teach you everything about it. And it is quite linear, as Ryan said. But they do also give you additional support when you're actually looking for jobs. So there's more of that coaching aspect afterwards. So there's 6 months of another mentor working with you, fixing your LinkedIn, etc. That part of like job searching, which I think, I'm not sure about other boot camps, but I know some other boot camps just kind of leave you to it and then you figure it out. So what's good, I think, is like, yes, there are some cookie cutter templates and portfolios as well, but I do think that echoing what both Ryan and Ming-E said, it's very important to get like real work and also diversify. And yes, like sometimes these boot camps tell you like finish in 6 months and you'll get a 6-figure salary like immediately. Like, no, that took me 10 plus years to get there. And a lot of pivots and transitions. And so similar to what Ming-E was saying is that you still have to work to get these opportunities in your door. It's not just like a given like factory where you just go in and out. But one thing that I have found is that you can, within those 3 portfolio pieces that the bootcamp gives you or assigns to you, I found it a lot more beneficial if you are able to do like a real project, even if it's just like your dad's company's website or like your auntie's like shop or something. Just something that's real and is not based on the brief that they give you, I think stands out a lot more. And I think similar, it's good to track your process and then try to mention how reiterative the process is, especially if you are working with something real, because you will obviously get feedback from the client and it will come in circles, and it won't just be the mentor giving you feedback on your work, but you're actually hearing it from the business owner or the person itself. So I think that's one way to stand out. And another way is really to find other projects outside of just your portfolio. So like the daily UI challenge that you mentioned, or even like passion projects or things that are just completely different. Like maybe you're a nature photographer, or you do like, I don't know, you're a baker, you know, things that make you different than what is actually all these other cookie cutter portfolios.
Yeah, absolutely good point. I think hiring manager or teams appreciate if you actually have real world work experience than those cookie cutter projects, even though some real world work experience may not look as cool. You know, building your dad's website is not the coolest thing, but actually we really appreciate when a designer have experience working with a developer, for example, and working with a client. That's something I think bootcamp can't really teach you, or any other kind of degree or school course can't teach you. And like, how do you manage your stakeholders? So definitely very valuable to get other type of experience. So thank you for all the questions, and thank you all the mentors again for your valuable time. Again, we ran out with time and there's still a lot of questions, but I do want to leave, maybe we're already at 6:30, but for those who want to kind of stick around, if you want to share your profile, this is what we did in the last session. You can share your profile and also maybe your website portfolio link or your LinkedIn, so that we can be connected, because we just talked about, you know, how important it is to network with each other. So I want everybody to, you know, take advantage of today's session, you know, share your profile, and then later on you can add each other, maybe chit chat, share your experiences, connect with the mentors if you have other questions that you want to follow up. But just want to say thank you for the great question. You're an awesome audience. And as usual, our mentors are really great, really, really good insight. And I hope everyone found this valuable. So I will just wrap that up. So just want to say thank you, and everybody have a great night or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much. I'll start the recording. All right, and for the mentor, if you want to stay on the Jamboard, answer a few questions, feel free to do so, or you can move on with your day as well. I know, Josie, you're tired. You may need a rest. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.